rebooting the internet. I think the internet has a huge problem, and I think we should try turning it off and back on. Any power which can be abused is going to be abused. I think that's been demonstrated throughout history. We need a kind of a new system, a new internet in a way that have centralized authorities that can abuse their platforms that they run. We have repeatedly we have examples of this where like the Overton window is maintained by Facebook, Google, Twitter. Facebook banned a list of dangerous extremist celebrities. This list is really not that their audience wasn't that big. Are they dangerous? I don't know. Banning them sort of their reach in a way. So that's one example. People say, "Oh, well, go build your own platform." Well, then you get banned from the App Store. Democracy at this point is somewhat obsolete. Facebook's been shown to have manipulated votes in the US through selectively reminding people to go vote. They have a lot of data on us where they sort of have these digital homunculi and they know how you're going to vote already, and they can just selectively remind certain people to vote that are going to vote the way that they would like. Google is also doing something similar. Yesterday, Mark Zuckerberg on Joe Rogan admitted that they had algorithmically censored the Hunter Biden laptop story prior to the election. Banking is somewhat complicit in this. The GoFundMe for the Canadian convoy that was protesting COVID was banned from GoFundMe and various other payment sources, so they really couldn't get support from outside. Gab had to move to Bitcoin payments due to banking blacklists. These are just some examples. There's tons of other ones. Unmoderated ad boards are basically not possible in the US. You have Backpages.com banned, Silk Road banned. Both sets of founders arrested. Ross is still in jail. And remember, kids, don't do drugs or have premarital sex. Thanks, Tobias. We have Project Hamilton incoming. CBDCs, you'll no longer have a bank account. Everybody will have a direct account with a central bank. If you say something wrong on the internet, you may not have access to buy bread anymore. This is sort of like a very dystopian future, but every power that can be abused will be abused. I think it's coming. I think it's a legitimate concern. I think we should be prepared. A lot of conversation has been around this. Protocols, not platforms. Well, if you're older than about 30, you remember that we used to have Usenet and SMTP that functioned. It became centralized. Everybody uses Hotmail, Gmail, Yahoo, whatever. And they can censor your email. I mean, that's the whole point of being on those platforms, is they move stuff into your spam folder. Usenet is basically unused. What happened? Spam. You have these open protocols. As soon as they become mildly useful, you start getting advertisers on there, and then they become useless because there's far too much noise. So we need free speech, but maybe it should be 50% off speech. There's this really amusing video I recommend that you look up from this. You might be an accelerationist, I don't know. Anti-citrism, where I stand politically. So prior to Bitcoin, there, Hal Finney, who was the first recipient of a Bitcoin from Satoshi, envisioned this idea of reusable proof of work. It attaches a costly signal to each message. Essentially, you grind some proof of work, and it proves that you expended some electricity in order to be able to send this message. The idea being that if I, send an email to Tobias, it costs, $1 in electricity. That shouldn't cost that much, but then he could reuse that proof of work and send me back the same message. But if I want to send a message to everybody in the world, that's going to be $8 billion, and that's too expensive. This wasn't possible to implement as envisioned at the time. It required a lookup for the tokens through some centralized server, and it just never ended up happening. primarily because of that reason. But then Hashcash with inflation control came out. So it turns out that Bitcoin's a reusable proof of work. They are that some proof of work happened in the past. You can build a work system as envisioned by Hal Finney on top of Bitcoin through cryptographic proofs. So you can say that this Bitcoin transaction is associated with this email through some fancy elliptic curve cryptography, and then I can send that email to Tobias, and he can look and see that he was in fact sent some Bitcoins that are uniquely associated with that email. So could we add these two together and get real freedom of speech? Well, Bitcoin doesn't work very well for this for a variety of reasons. And these are all sort of related to the onboarding problem or the problem of adoption. One is there's no funding for developers. The other one would be the onboarding problem is that how do you get people Bitcoins in the first place so they can send emails? That's convenient. And then there's too much volatility for actually, one, wanting to do this. If I send some Bitcoins, how do I know what they're going to be worth later? Like, how do I actually decide how many I want to send people? And then unrelated to that problem is that the volatility makes it somewhat useless for denominating contracts. Like, I'm not going to negotiate wages for somebody I want to hire, right? I'm going to negotiate that contract in terms of some kind of reasonably stable currency, which is only managed by governments at this time, and then I might settle in Bitcoin. Also, I'm not going to do savings in Bitcoin. I might buy it as a speculative asset and hold it, but I'm not going to save money in it, right? I need liquidity in order to pay debts, and I need those things stored in fiat currency that my debts are denominated in. So regarding the mining reward, one of the things that's happened in Bitcoin is that the developers didn't have any funding. All of the mining rewards go only to miners. So you have developers that are looking for funding from outside sources. Their incentives are no longer aligned with actually building the core crypto technologies out. The Blockstream was founded by the core Bitcoin developers. They went and got outside investments. They started Liquid. Their plan didn't actually end up working because it took them so long to build Liquid that you have 3,000 altcoins at this point that kind of serve all the same purposes. Miners don't have any incentive to fund development because they're all in competition with one another. If one miner tries to go and donate to development, they're not reinvesting in their mining pools and their mining farms. So they basically would go out of business relative to their competitors that are reinvesting more. This has caused repeated forking and disagreements between developers. We have, 5 different forks at this time of Bitcoin. If developers were funded, I think you would find that they would get along much better. You have the onboarding problem. How do you get people Bitcoins? Originally, people just mined on their computers. Like, they supported the idea of Bitcoin. They'd run their computers. They'd get some Bitcoins. And then ASICs came along. It became a commercial activity. It became very hard to mine. You had to actually invest a lot of money, capital expense to get some Bitcoins. And so few people have it, and it's inconvenient to obtain. You either need to find somebody that has it and do an OTC trade, or you need to go to a crypto exchange, which may or may not be available in your country. You have to go through a bunch of KYC, do a bunch of begging, wait. And then what do you do with it afterwards, right? How are you going to use it? Is it a speculative asset? Where do you spend it, et cetera? There's very little motivation for most people to actually go through this process to get some Bitcoins. The third problem being volatility. The emission schedule in Bitcoin with the 4-year halvenings actually causes those parabolic swings, partially because it has a negative coefficient of price elasticity. New microphone. Okay, we'll do 3 microphones. Hopefully this one works. And that destroys all utility for denominating contracts again. It's like, it doesn't end up satisfying the dream of this decentralized, crypto anarchist culture, right? You can't build anything. So can we kill two birds with one stone? Can we create a decentralized pseudo stable coin that is trustless? It's not pegged to any central bank currency. It has a reasonable monetary policy so that it's stable, while also solving the freedom of speech issue. This book came out this year, and I believe it's the solution is to organize like a virtual nation. Pretend we're a government, but we don't have any territory. One of the core parts of this is to use blockchain technology. It enables a new type of government. It's trustless, it's fundamentally nonviolent, and it's technologically limited in power. You can only enforce laws through code. Right? Your constitution is essentially Bitcoin D. So this is the network state in one sentence as per their website. A network state is a highly aligned online community with a capacity for collective action that crowdfunds territory around the world and eventually gains diplomatic recognition from pre-existing states. So the highly aligned part is around an ideology, right? What is the ideology of this community? What are their core values? And then the way in which they crowdfund is through issuing their own currency, right? They collect essentially what the governments use for funding their efforts, which is signage. Right? So here's the moral innovation that it's not very innovative, this has been around a long time. This is my particular bent. I might disapprove of what you say, but I'll defend your right to say it. And then you have the foundation of the U.S. through the U.S., Declaration of Independence. And it says, and for the support of this declaration, with a firm reliance on the protection of divine providence, we mutually pledge to each other our lives, our fortunes, and our sacred honor. I think people forget how serious they were. Many of the signers on this actually died in poverty. They either died in the war or they died in poverty. Like, how serious are you about stopping this dystopian future where you can't say what you want, and if you do, you're cut off from access to bread? Would it be better to lose all your money now or lose all your money later? So one of the things that is been a problem in the crypto space that I've noticed is that most cryptocurrency enthusiasts and activists fall into the Austrian camp of economics. And it doesn't really explain how money works and how governments maintain stability on their currencies. A better modern explanation is modern monetary theory. And basically, governments print money, they take some profit, right? Like talking about those crypto notes, they spend 1/10 of a cent to print €1, they get a bunch of profit, they spend that to fund all their activity, not through taxes, right? It's through the signage process. And then they maintain stability in the economy through the tax rates and interest rates. So they actually, kind of maintain how much money is in the economic sink. So how do we fix cryptocurrency or fix Bitcoin? We add signage, which is essentially funding to development organizations. There's two cryptocurrencies right now that are doing that. One is Zcash. They kind of pioneered that. It's questionable whether they could manage that, whether the government would come for them or not. They actually have electric coin company based in San Francisco. They seem to be being ignored. And that funds all their quote unquote government employees, all their open source software and infrastructure, all their marketing, and social welfare in a way. Like they give away coins for like meme competitions and stuff. But it's not inflationary. It does have a lot of volatility still. So can we add inflation to the coin and then a way to get rid of it out of the economy without just pulling it out of people's accounts? So if you add inflation, you can add in also voluntary destructive use. That's essentially your taxes. If somebody has to destroy coins and in order to use one of these pieces of software that the developers have produced, then that gives a social consensus way of deciding how many units of currency are currently in the economy. So here's how you apply modern monetary theory to cryptocurrency. One is an automated issuance schedule. Turns out mining difficulty is a proxy for price. We discovered this when Bitcoin Cash forked, as we're watching miners switch back and forth between chains, and we had a difficulty adjustment algorithm that that changed over time much faster than the 2-week interval for Bitcoin. So we can use that to approximate what the current price of the coin is and adjust the issuance to miners and to developers. Then you have tax policy. How much do you want to be paid for your attention? So if there are applications which burn some amount of crypto in order to broadcast a message that everyone might see, and people adjust their filtering rate, then you have social consensus around how much you have to spend to send a message to everyone in the world. And that might not make sense. I'll give an example. I have a tech demo. So there's two different things that I'm working on right now. One is Lotus, other is Stamp. I don't know if these will actually solve the problems, but it's at least an attempt. So Lotus is the sovereign currency of a virtual state, which we call Lotusia, sort of as a joke. It provides the reusable proof of work token to bootstrap an uncensorable communication protocol. It provides funding to all of the people participating in this idea. The blockchain is transparent so that it avoids all the laws associated with privacy coins. It's based on eCash, which is a highly scalable blockchain, and it provides the access token for governance services. And then you have Stamp, which provides an open off-chain protocol for uncensorable communication. It provides encrypted direct messages between wallets and broadcast messages which require coin burns. So in this crypto messenger, as you might call it, if I send Tobias a message, I have to include some Lotus with it. And then his inbox can either be filtered by how much he was sent or prioritized by how much he was sent. So if there's spam, goes to the bottom of the list, won't notify on his phone. And then there's also broadcast messages which form a global chat room. They're topic-based, and you can filter out what messages you receive based on how many coins were destroyed. So how much is the author willing to pay in order to get your attention? And that can change over time as more messages are sent to a topic or less messages are sent to a topic. And then because you have this off-chain protocol where these messages are semi-ephemeral and also direct messages between users, you can provide a privacy layer. So you can implement all of the stealth transactions that were discussed on Bitcoin for many years through this messaging protocol, where I can provide one private key to my contacts, and they're able to derive many other private keys and never use the same key twice. You can also do things like bulk transactions, so you can implement something sort of like Mimblewimble by saying, I'm going to send you 100 Lotus, but I'm actually going to do it through 10 transactions. So I'm never going to produce any change outputs on my transactions. And then the final piece here, which some people are very excited about, is you can actually provide smart contract negotiation layer without it going through centralized service. So that could be like threshold signature negotiation, which is interactive protocol. It could be a variety of other contracts where I send you the template of the hash and it's some known type of contract. There's a lot of options here. It's not my particular interest. There's other people that are UTXO-based smart contract nerds, but there's a lot of possibilities. So going back to the coin issuance, in Bitcoin on the left, you have this defined issuance schedule where every 4 years the amount halves. You don't have tail emission. It's arguable whether Bitcoin will survive that. Other cryptocurrencies like Monero have added tail emission, but they're not inflationary. On Lotus, we use the proof of work current difficulty level as a proxy for price, and then we use the logarithm of that to adjust what the current coin issuance is. That may not end up alone producing stability, but as a society of people, we're more pragmatic. Like, we have a specific goal, and if coin issuance needs to change and we can show that it has to change in a particular way to produce a stable currency, then that'll happen. We're not ideologically possessed with the white paper as if it was handed to Moses on Mount Zion. So this is what Stamp looks like right now. What you're looking at is one of the topics. And so you have a variety of messages here. You can see how much people destroyed in terms of Lotus in order to post those messages. This is the news topic. And then on the direct messages here, you have various things that people have sent me. You can't see how many Lotus they've sent, but it's actually stored, and this is sorted by how much, in terms of value transacted, I've interacted with that person. So these protocols, even though what you saw on that screen is all text-based messaging, they're actually structured and can easily be used for machine-to-machine communication. So you can build bots that are like apps, they're stores essentially. I don't know if people remember DCC bots on IRC, you can build those. There's tons of options that you can build when you have an uncensorable communications platform like this. Broadcast messages are essentially a way to do service discovery, and the direct messages are a way to interact directly between these essentially smart contracts, but they're really bots. They're not running on chain, which makes them a lot more scalable. So this is the overall vision. Found an online startup society, organized into groups of collective action, build trust offline, and as an online crypto economy. Our primary products are an uncensorable communications platform, a trustless pseudo stablecoin, and open source infrastructure for building wallets. Eventually, we'll hopefully crowdfund physical spaces. There's actually one of the developers doing this in Vietnam. There's a surprising amount of adoption there because Lotus is the official flower of Vietnam, and they're a Buddhist community, so they really love it. And then digitally connect physical communities. That's done through Stamp. And then connect an on-chain consensus. We haven't done that yet. And hopefully one day gain diplomatic recognition. It would be great if we could partner with some small nation state and then go over to and get some crypto notes and issue them. Many of these things are ongoing, like we've completed them, but there's still a lot of work to do. Any questions?
I'm wondering about some of the design decisions for Lotus. For example, why did you not make Lotus ASIC resistant?
So the question was, why is Lotus not async resistant? I didn't go into a lot of the design of Lotus, but Lotus is explicitly not ASIC resistant. Like, we want people to have to put a capital investment into mining the coin. I think it's been shown with Bitcoin that miners do have some incentive to invest in the advertising and marketing of Bitcoin. Like, a lot of miners are invested in exchanges and other adoption programs. It's provided it's profitable, they'll engage. So yeah, we want people that are sort of, they're sold out for the coin, and one way of doing that is through ASICs. If they're eventually made, people will mine Lotus and stick to it rather than mining whatever's profitable and just selling it on the exchange immediately.
Their design question is, why require coin destruction for broadcasting messages? Is there another way that it could be done? And why did you choose the burning approach?
So the question was, why destroy coins for broadcasting messages? There's a number of other protocols that do something similar to what the broadcast messages on Stamp do that don't burn coins. For one is, if you want to limit spam, you need to have some cost associated with those messages. Who would you pay and how much? Yes, you could pay the developers and make that consensus, but rotating those private keys would be very difficult. The other thing about it is that it allows any individual to prove to themselves that there was a real cost associated with that message and how much that cost was. So if there's, because this is an open platform, people can spam. But by burning those coins, they're losing money, and you're able to set a filter on, no, what is the watermark that I'm willing to receive messages at to avoid getting too much information. What we really have right now is not a problem of too much information, rather than not enough information. We have to limit where our attention is. Does that answer your question?
Why not pay the block rewardees for broadcasting the message? You said that was another alternative. Why
It is an alternative. So if in that case, you would have to have an output that would pay some private key, and you'd have to sweep those funds. You'd have all these UTXOs that are very small. And if you already have the developer reward in the Coinbase, why do you need to do both? If you want to take those coins out of circulation anyways, in order to maintain some stability on the cryptocurrency, you're paying the developers through the issuance of new coins, and then you're letting the user base decide how much their attention is worth and how many coins they're going to tax everybody else for their attention. So there's really no, it'd be really inefficient to pay developers, for one, and then two, you're not taking the coins out of circulation in order to allow some convergence on the number of coins in the economy and thus the price.
I just have a super short question. How to get on Snapchat? Maybe you can plug.
Yeah, so it's the URL is right here. It's web.stampchat.io. We have a faucet that's funded through the block reward. We have a bunch of Filipino friends that sit there and mine the faucet, so it might be out, but it's funded through the block reward. If you need some coins, just let me know, and I'd be happy to give you some. Does that answer your question? Yeah. So I have coins for anybody that wants some, and you can get on Snapchat and try it out. This is a tech demo. If we're continuing to build it, but yeah.
And also, Shammah will later do a workshop after Pierre's workshop, where he can go through the flow of Stamp, like how to send a message, and it'll be like a live demo, except the layout will be a little different. Yes. Do we have some questions from the online side, or maybe some more questions from here?
If I remember originally, this was supposed to be very decentralized, more like a protocol, or everything open source, not a platform, right? So people should be able to run their own servers.
Correct. Yeah. So rather than this being peer-to-peer, it's federated like email. So there's a few different services on the back end. One is the Lotus network, that is the cryptocurrency that bootstraps all the essentially the spam prevention. The other one is that there's a registry server where you can register your public key, a name, an avatar and some other piece of information that's globally shared on a shared everything database. And then there's, I don't know what it was renamed to, but there's essentially a relay server or a mailbox server that when you sign up for the account, you advertise yourself on this globally shared everything registry server, and then in there you put where you receive messages. So you can run your own server and have your own mail server, and any wallet that wants to send you a message will know to go there and dump a message in your inbox. And then when your wallet's online, again, it goes and it pulls those messages down.
So if I remember correctly, like I've read the original motivation. The explanation that you were giving is that the remailers or the BBS or whatever it was of old time didn't really work because the servers, the remailers, or I don't know how it was called in the bulletin boards, were not compensated for.
So your question is, like, why did email and Usenet and whatnot fall out of like popular use?
You said that it was because the servers, the decentralized servers, were not compensated for storing and broadcasting the.
No. So that isn't why I don't use them anymore. Anyways, I don't use them because I get too many messages. Like I get a lot of emails every day. So originally email is extremely useful, and there was a number of problems with it that have caused it to fall out of use. Not all of it's spam. One is the email. You have to, if you want to change providers, you used to get these email addresses from your ISP, and then you'd move from, say, Paris to some other place. You'd have to get some other ISP, and then change your email, and you'd have to inform all your friends. So with this, the global registry system, you can just say, hey, I don't like the person that's providing me stamp messages anymore. I'm going to switch to a new provider, and all your contacts will automatically update. And then the other thing that made email kind of fall out of use as a decentralized platform is the spam, right? There's essentially no cost to send a message. All of the cost is on the receiver and their ability to go through their inbox. So that made the need for Gmail and these other centralized platforms that have, complicated AIs and statistical algorithms that limit what you can receive, and you use them for that reason. Ironically, what you end up trading for you using their platform for free is they get the right to spam you. They look at your emails, and then they send you a limited amount of spam that's supposedly good spam that is, targeted to your interests. So you still get spam. With a system like this, you'll likely get spam eventually. If like thousands and thousands of people start using these systems, there'll be somebody that wants to advertise on there, but you'll get paid, and the spam will be limited in that they will have an expected return on their targeted advertising that is more than they spend on sending out free money to everybody. Does that answer your question?
Okay. Second question, if I may. So this is now Lotus exclusive. This is exclusive for the Lotus currency, or?
Yeah. Yes. Yeah.
Yes, okay.
That's true.
So would it work the same with eCash, or some of these nation building properties wouldn't be there, or?
So some of the issues for onboarding. Originally, I was doing on Bitcoin Cash. Nobody would give me any money to build this. So I've just been self-funding. Then moved it over to eCash. It's sort of the same issue, and I didn't have a way to give out tokens, right? I have the same problem for this messaging system that a cryptocurrency has. How do I onboard people onto it? And it's the exact same problem as onboarding to a cryptocurrency. Either I'm limiting the number of people that can use it to that specific cryptocurrency, or I'm onboarding them to the cryptocurrency and this wallet at the same time. So by adding in a developer reward and making the tokens inflationary, I can just give out tokens to whoever is interested as a token of appreciation for trying my product. Right? I can pay people to onboard. I can do the PayPal model. Here's $5 to start using this thing.
One more question. You talked about that there will be a possibility later to advertise on this platform, right? Are you planning to have like, I don't know, like Google Ads similar service where you can basically like search by some kind of like interests of the users or something like this, and then have like a targeted advertisement, and people have to pay for this, the targets of the advertisement in a sense?
So the question was, you're planning to have ads on this platform eventually, like how would that work? I'm not planning to have ads on this platform. What I'm saying is that if there's a sufficient number of users putting their eyeballs on these topics, that people are going to post junk into them. But it will essentially, by doing that, it will pay all the users that are not posting junk. How that end up working, how they do the analytics and what topics they post to and who they DM. Yeah, I'm sure that like there'll be businesses that are optimizing that as much as possible in order to reduce the cost of advertising. But this is like, it has to reach critical mass. There has to be, 100,000 users or 1 million users at a minimum before somebody's even going to put the time in to like start doing this. There probably somebody will post on their like crypto affiliate link to some scam, I'm sure, but like, so it goes, right? If you have freedom of speech, you're going to have stuff that you don't want on there. There is a voting system. So one of the reasons to do a coin burn as well is maybe you want to downvote some garbage that's on there. So the users can actually moderate this through destroying some of their own coins. Like, I don't like this message. Let's get rid of it. I think that a search engine could ultimately build on top of this as well, where essentially everything is AdWords and you just vote on your, I don't like this link. Let's get this down on the search results. I don't know if that will optimize for the best type of information on the search engine, but I think it's a worthwhile experiment. It wouldn't be too hard to build a tech demo for. Everything's an ad, right? Like that's the sort of the idea is every message is an ad. Just make it all the same. Does that answer your question? Was there any online questions, Tobias?
So, yes, the next one would be the workshops. The first one would be done by Pierre. We'll make a short break and set everything up. And yes, and then after that, you're being set up. And then after the workshops, we will have the VIP dinner. And after that, yeah, we'll have a bar evening, I guess. Right.